Thanks for checking out LearnTV. Today we're going to talk about different autofocus system on Sony cameras.
Hi, I'm Tim.
And I'm Tuki, and welcome to LearnTV. Today on LearnTV we are going to talk about autofocus system. Sony recently launched the A6000 right here, which has a really cool focusing system which is called hybrid autofocus. Okay, so hybrid autofocus have been around for a couple of years, but the really exciting part about this type of autofocus is that it is now faster than phase detection found on digital SLR, and this is we're talking about on a mirrorless camera, so it does not have that mirror.
That's very cool.
So there's two main, before we get to actually hybrid autofocus, there's two different type of autofocus system. One is called phase detection that you find on digital SLR, and the other one is contrast detection that is found on little point and shoot cameras and smartphone. Okay, so we're gonna explain those two before we get to the hybrid autofocus.
All right.
So phase detection, Tim.
Phase detection. So phase detection's actually been around for the longest. It was around with the film SLRs. And the easiest way to think of phase detection is basically as a distance measure.
Yep.
So it uses two tiny sensors and an array of lenses to basically measure the distance between your camera and the subject you're taking a photo of.
Great.
So to help you understand how this works, I've got an SLR here that I can pull out for you. So we've talked a lot about SLRs and mirrorless cameras on previous episodes, so you probably understand how they work. You essentially have your lens on the front here, so the light goes through the lens and it hits this mirror.
Yep.
And that mirror serves two purposes. It reflects the light up and back around to the viewfinder, so you can see what image is coming through the lens.
Through the actual lens, which is good.
But it is also semi-transparent, and you can see there's another tiny mirror behind there.
Yep.
And what that other mirror is doing is it's reflecting the light down in the bottom here, where there is a phase detection autofocus sensor. So you've got a dedicated autofocus sensor in a digital SLR, and that means that you can get really fast focusing using this, essentially this distance encoder. Good. So to show you how it works, we've got a little animation that I can take you through it. If you look here, we've got the bird and the flowers are our subject. The camera lens there is basically the focusing lens, which moves forward and back to focus the camera. And then on the right hand side of the picture, that purple and the red point are the two autofocus sensors. Yep. Now the advantage of this system, if I play this you'll see, is that depending on whether you're focused in front of or behind the subject, the camera always knows which direction to move the focusing sensor in order to focus it.
Oh, nice.
So it only needs to move in one direction, and it knows when it reaches its destination because those focusing sensors get lined up. So phase detection has the advantage of being very fast.
Awesome.
And to show you what I mean, we've got a little setup here. So
awesome. So so what we actually have here is we have an SLR with the phase detection. We have two subjects, so we have a little guy right here, and we have the lens at the back here. So the whole idea, what I'll be doing is I'll be moving this little guy in and out of the frame, out of the shot, to actually show you how that that phase detection actually works, which is quite nice. Okay, so as you can see there, it is focused on the back lens. I just go like that, and the little guy is in focus. Okay, so you can see that little green square as I move this out. As I said before, focus on the back and forth. Okay, so the really cool thing about phase detection, and you'll see when we do the demonstration with contrast detection, is it's really, really fast. The lens knows exactly which direction to move, as Tim mentioned, and it will give you, really fast autofocusing speed, which is quite nice. So the second part, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about contrast detection. Okay, so this was done with little lenses. Contrast detection is a bit different, right, Tim?
Yeah, contrast detection is a purely digital system. So it uses the processor in a camera. Every digital camera has got a processor to analyze the image and make sure you get a good picture. It actually uses that processor to analyze the image and determine at what point, when it's moving the focusing lens, that image is at its sharpest. So it has the most contrast, essentially. Yep. So it's highly reliant on the speed of the processor, but it's also reliant on one other thing, and that is that you have to basically know when it's out of focus in the sort of back direction as well as in the front direction. So it generally has to overshoot, and it often does this hunting thing that you mentioned. So once again, if I just quickly show you with this next little animation how that works. We've got our bird here, and the lens is moving, and you might have noticed that the image was in focus, the image of the flower there was in focus, but the lens had to shoot past it. So I'll show you again a little bit more slowly and talk you through it. Once again, lens is moving. It's actually at its sharpest point here, but it needs to overshoot in order to know that it was previously in focus. So that's the disadvantage of contrast detection autofocus.
Yep.
The advantage of it is that it's very precise, because obviously it's reading the data directly off the sensor. Once that data is in focus, it knows that the image you capture is also going to be directly in focus as well, so no external sensors. But the speed is a real factor, and it certainly has been one of the disadvantages of mirrorless cameras leading up until this point.
Yep.
So we'll show you again. Tuki, if you can take us through what you're doing again.
Yeah, so with contrast detection, so what we're doing here is we actually have a smartphone, and what we're going to do the same demo. We have a smartphone, the little guy is going to be in the middle. We're going to move this in and out of the frame, so it focuses at the back and then back the front, back, etc. And the whole this whole experiment is just to actually show you the focusing speed and that hunting that that Tim was talking about before. Okay, so if we just move to that, so right now I am actually focused at the back. Okay, so on the actual lens, and as I move this into the shot, you should be able to see like the camera is hunting. I know the head is moving a little bit in and out, but if I go in and out, you will see the camera is trying to hunt. There it's wobbling a little bit, back forward and backwards.
You can see it overshooting.
Yeah, it is overshooting, so as you were saying. So that's the whole thing with contrast detection. It has to, you know, it's not as fast as phase detection, and this is what a lot of people, you know, have been complaining about mirrorless and point and shoot, is it's not as fast as phase detection.
We should highlight that this is the Xperia Z1, so this is a very good phone. You know,
very good phone.
Far better than a lot of smartphones in terms of that camera functionality.
Yeah, it is actually much faster than a lot of point and shoot cameras.
Yeah.
Now, what we're going to talk about now is the A6000 and that hybrid autofocus and how that actually works. Now, hybrid. The whole point of hybrid autofocus is it actually uses some part of phase detection, and it will also use some part of contrast detection, which is a really cool thing about it. Now, on the actual sensor, when we're going to show you the demo, on the actual sensor you do have heaps of little lenses, which is the phase detection on sensor. So what it means is it will focus really quickly on your subject, and then it switched to contrast detection to have that nice sharpness, as Tim was saying.
Alright, so you can see those little green spots, those little green squares. If I move them off to the side...
So they're on this whole sensor.
Yeah, they pretty much cover the whole sensor, top and bottom, left and right. And those are all phase detection sensors, so they're working the same principle as an SLR. You've got two little sensors and they act as a distance measurement. So when you move the little man out, you'll see that it uses those distance measurements to focus straight onto the lens without having to hunt, and again straight onto the guy without having to hunt.
So compared to contrast detection, it doesn't hunt, it just goes straight there and it focuses really quickly, which is a really nice thing.
But at the same time, it's got the contrast detection, so all of this is driven by the Beyond's X processor, so you've got a very fast processor, and those two things are working together to give you not only fast autofocus, but even more precise autofocus as well.
Yeah. And the other cool thing as well is with a mirrorless you have a much smaller camera, you can adapt all those lenses as we discussed on other episodes. So a lot of people will choose those cameras now because they don't have to lug in this really heavy SLR with them, and now they have the really fast autofocus, which is really good. So
it's exciting times for mirrorless cameras, as we always say when we bring out these new features. So A6000 is available now. We've got other models that have got hybrid autofocus as well. So it's a revolutionary technology that is genuinely going to get rid of a lot of the bulk in cameras. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching.